The perpetual twilight of Aethelburg's industrial docks suited Kaelen Thorne just fine. Gray light, gray water, gray steel. A muted palette for a muted life. The air here was a brutal concoction of brine, diesel fumes, and the metallic tang of salt-rusted cranes, a scent Kaelen had come to associate with a kind of dull, reassuring permanence. He preferred it to the cloying sweetness of the city's upper districts, where manicured parks and crystal-latticed towers pretended that the world hadn't ripped itself open not so long ago. His job was simple: operate a hydraulic hoist, stacking shipping containers onto automated freighters that plied the coastal routes. It was mindless, heavy work, the kind that allowed him to vanish into the rhythmic clang and hiss of machinery, a ghost in the gears. He didn't speak much to his coworkers, didn't need to. They understood the unspoken code of dockhands: keep your head down, do your job, and don't ask questions. It was a life built on a foundation of tangible realities, of steel and sweat, of precise weight distributions and scheduled departures. Anything beyond that, anything vague, or spiritual, or chaotic, Kaelen dismissed with the kind of practiced disdain only a survivor could muster. He still saw the dust sometimes, fine and gray, coating everything in the aftermath. The way it had settled on the faces of the missing, printed them into the very air. Not just dust, he knew now, but the pulverized remnants of mountains, of homes, of lives. A titan had done that. A creature of indifferent, elemental fury, and Kaelen's family had been caught in its wake. He had been a boy, just barely, clinging to a broken branch in a ruined forest, watching the world burn. The memory was a cold, constant ache in his chest, a scar tissue that had grown around his heart, making it tough, unyielding. Today, however, the routine felt off. The usual drone of the city, normally a comforting background hum, seemed to carry an undercurrent of something else. A subtle thrum, like a bass note played just beneath the threshold of hearing. The automated freighters, usually punctual to the second, were experiencing delays, their NAV computers flagging unexpected atmospheric turbulence hundreds of miles offshore. Even the seabirds, gulls and petrels that usually squawked aggressively over discarded fish, were quieter, circling higher, their calls thin and anxious. Kaelen ignored it. He always ignored it. The world was chaotic. It always had been. Attributing significance to every ripple in the pond was a fool's game, one that invited vulnerability. He guided a towering stack of nutrient-paced containers into place, the hoist groaning in protest. He signed off the manifest on his wrist-mounted data pad, the sterile blue light reflecting in his dark, wary eyes. His shift was nearly over. He could almost taste the lukewarm instant coffee waiting for him in his cramped, functional apartment. Then a splash. Not the usual heavy thud of a cargo net hitting water or the careless slip of a crate. This was lighter, more deliberate. Kaelen frowned, peering over the railing of his control booth. Below, near the waterline, where the oil-slicked concrete met the dark, churning harbor, something was amiss. A figure, silhouetted against the dim, artificial light of the distant city, was perched precariously on a mooring buoy. Kaelen cursed under his breath. Kids. Always kids, pushing the boundaries, trying to get a thrill. He leaned out further, ready to yell. But as the figure turned, Kaelen froze. It wasn't a kid. She was an anomaly, a splash of color in his monochrome world. Her hair, a riot of iridescent purple and electric blue streaks, caught the faint light. She wore an antique-looking floral dress, utterly impractical for the docks, layered over with a patchwork jacket that looked like it had been salvaged from a dozen different textiles. Her feet, bare and dusted with what looked suspiciously like glitter, dangled just above the lapping waves. She was looking not at the sea, nor at the massive defensive wall that protected Aethelburg from the deeper ocean, but upwards, towards the perpetually overcast sky. Hey, Kaelen barked, his voice rough. You can't be down there. It's a restricted area. The woman startled, her head snapping down. Her eyes, startlingly wide and the color of a summer sky, fixed on him. A smile, genuine and disarmingly bright, bloomed on her face. Oh. Hello. I didn't see you there among all the wonderful metal giants. Kaelen blinked. Wonderful metal giants? She was either dangerously naive or utterly mad. It's a working dock, not a park. You need to leave. Oh, I know, she said, her voice a melodic lilt that seemed utterly out of place amidst the industrial din. She gracefully hopped off the buoy, landing softly on the concrete. But I had to get closer to the water. It's speaking. Kaelen pinched the bridge of his nose. This was precisely the kind of irrational nonsense he spent his life avoiding. The water isn't speaking. It's a body of salt water, and it's probably polluted. You need to go. Oh, it's not the water itself speaking, she corrected, walking closer, her bare feet seemingly oblivious to the grime. She moved with an airy grace, like a dandelion seed on the breeze. It's what the water carries. The tremors beneath, the whispers on the currents. They're getting louder, you see. She was surprisingly close now, her presence a bright, unsettling warmth in Kaelen's carefully constructed chill. He noticed a small, intricately carved wooden pendant hanging from a silver chain around her neck, shaped like a moth. Tremors. Kaelen scoffed. There haven't been any seismic alerts. Not that kind of tremor, she said, her smile softening, tinged with a faint sadness. The kind that travels through the dreaming world. The kind that wakes things up. Her gaze drifted past him, towards the open sea, and her expression grew distant, almost luminous. I had a dream last night. A terrible one. The kind that leaves your soul humming with dread. Kaelen felt a prickle of unease, but he suppressed it. Look, lady, I don't know what you're talking about, but you're trespassing. And I'm about 5 seconds from calling Port Authority. She didn't react to his threat, her focus still on the horizon. It wasn't a dream of Mothra. Mothra's dreams are always beautiful, even when they're warnings. Gossamer threads of light, gentle nudges towards truth. This was different. Primal. Raw. Like the earth itself was screaming. She turned back to Kaelen, her bright eyes suddenly intense. There was a shadow, deeper than any night, and its roar, it tasted of ancient stone and crushing tides. It spoke a name, you see. A name like a grinding of tectonic plates. She paused, then whispered the name, her voice barely audible over the clang of distant machinery. Vorlag. Kaelen's carefully constructed indifference wavered. Vorlag. The name struck a dissonant chord, stirring a primal fear he'd long buried. It sounded like the world-shattering sounds of his childhood nightmare, the rumbling that had preceded the dust, the silence, the emptiness. He dismissed it as imagination, a trick of the mind. He'd heard enough mad ramblings from street preachers predicting the end of days. But the girl's conviction, the raw fear in her luminous eyes, was unnerving. It will come from the deep, she continued, her voice gaining a strange, almost hypnotic cadence. From places where light has never touched. And it means to reshape this land, to scour it clean. She gestured towards the massive, reinforced sea walls that were Aethelburg's pride. Those won't hold it. Not the way it's coming. You're talking nonsense, Kaelen said, his voice sharper than he intended. The words felt like sandpaper in his throat. He needed her to stop. Needed her to leave, to take her unsettling visions and her bright, intrusive presence somewhere else. He needed to believe it was nonsense. Titans don't just wake up and decide to reshape the land. They're biological entities driven by instinct, not malevolence. He recited the official line, the one taught in schools, the one designed to rationalize the unthinkable. Oh, but this one does, she insisted, her gaze unwavering. Some are old enough to remember when the world was molten rock, when the land was just clay in their hands. Vorlag is one of those. She shivered, a genuine tremor passing through her. The dream showed me, the water here, it will turn black. The very air will feel heavy, like stone. And then the earth will heave. She pointed a delicate finger towards the eastern horizon, where the first hint of morning was attempting to break through the persistent clouds. The barrier islands. That's where it will first make its presence known. A warning before it turns its hunger on the city. Aethelburg's barrier islands were rugged, uninhabited outcrops, home to a few automated monitoring stations and little else. They were, in essence, the city's outermost line of defense, equipped with advanced seismic and sonar arrays. If something were to happen there, it would be detected. Immediately. Kaelen took a deep, shaky breath, trying to anchor himself back in reality. That's enough, he snapped, his control slipping. You're clearly confused. Or worse. I'm calling Port Authority. He reached for his comm link, his hand trembling almost imperceptibly. You can call them, she said, her voice surprisingly gentle, but they won't believe me either. Not until it's too late. She smiled sadly. My name is Luna, by the way. Luna Lovegood. And you're Kaelen, the one who tries to disappear but carries the echoes of a deep sorrow. Kaelen froze, his hand hovering over the comm link. The last part hit him like a physical blow. No one knew that. No one saw that. He had built walls of steel and indifference around that sorrow. How could she possibly? Before he could react, Luna turned, her bare feet finding purchase on the slick concrete, and she began to walk away, a splash of color receding into the graying dawn. She didn't look back. Kaelen watched her go, a cold not forming in his stomach. He stood there for a long moment, the drone of the city suddenly feeling louder, less comforting, more like the distant rumble of something immense. The air, which moments ago had been simply damp and salty, now seemed to carry a faint, metallic taste, like rain on rusted iron. And in the far distance, towards the eastern barrier islands, he thought he saw it, a flicker. A pulse of unnatural light, quickly swallowed by the gloom. He squeezed his eyes shut. It was nothing. Just his imagination, playing tricks. The residual trauma, manifesting as irrational fear. But the name, Vorlag, echoed in his mind, and for the first time in years, Kaelen Thorne felt a tremor that had nothing to do with machinery or seismic activity. It was a tremor that shook the very foundations of his carefully constructed, detached world. The rhythmic clang of loading cranes usually lulled Kaelen into a familiar, numb state, a metallic heartbeat to drown out the echoes of a past he refused to revisit. But this morning, even the docks felt alien. A fine, almost imperceptible mist hung heavy in the air, not the usual sea spray, but something colder, denser. The gulls, typically a raucous chorus, were eerily silent, circling high above with an unsettling quietude. Kaelen ran a calloused hand through his dark hair, the bristly stubble on his jaw an unconscious comfort. He tried to focus on the cargo manifests on his datapad, the mundane logistics of Container 7B from Osaka. But his mind kept drifting back to Luna's wide, earnest eyes, her impossible claims. A primal titan, a deep sleeper waking. Vorlag. The name itself was a growl. He scoffed, a dry, humorless sound. Titans were chaos, yes, he knew that better than anyone, but they were also predictable in their unpredictability. Their emergences were geological events, often heralded by seismic shifts, not by the whimsical dreams of a dockside eccentric. Yet a tremor, faint but undeniable, shivered through the concrete under his boots. It wasn't the usual thrum of heavy machinery. This was deeper, a low hum that resonated in his chest, making the iron girders of the warehouse hum faintly in response. He glanced around. No one else seemed to notice. Or perhaps they were just better at ignoring the world's inconvenient truths than he was. His skepticism was a fortress built brick by brick with the debris of his shattered life. He'd survived by seeing the world in black and white, intangible realities. Luna, with her vibrant spirit and dreams of giant moths, was a splash of impossible color he wanted no part of. Then she appeared, a flash of scarlet amidst the muted grays and browns of the docks, her fiery hair a beacon against the mist. Luna Lovegood. Her usually effervescent energy was dimmed, replaced by a frantic urgency that sent a prickle of unease down Kaelen's spine. Kaelen, she cried, her voice hoarse, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she weaved through a maze of forklifts and stacked containers. Her eyes, usually sparkling with a kind of playful wisdom, were wide and shadowed. It's worse. He straightened, a knot tightening in his gut. Worse? What are you talking about now, Luna? Another dream about a giant squid with a top hat. He tried for his usual sarcastic bite, but it felt hollow. She ignored his barb, seizing his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Her fingers were cold. It's not a dream anymore. Not just my head. The world is groaning. I can feel it, Kaelen, the way the earth shifts, the way the air thrums. She pointed a trembling finger towards the open sea. The currents are wrong. The water is colder. And the whispers, they're louder now. Kaelen followed her gaze. The ocean, usually a churning expanse of blues and greens, was a murky, bruised indigo. And he could have sworn a faint, guttural rumble seemed to emanate from the very depths. His rational mind scrambled for explanations. Undersea seismic activity, a distant sub, atmospheric pressure changes. But the tremor beneath his feet intensified, a low groan that vibrated up his spine, a primal sound that hinted at something ancient stirring. My dreams, Luna continued, her voice dropping to a terrified whisper, they're not visions, they're instructions. Vorlag is seeking something. A place of power, a nexus. It needs to root. And I saw the city. The old clock tower split in half. The marketplace flooded. And the screams, Kaelen, the screams were so real. She shuddered, pressing a hand to her forehead. Mothra, she's showing me the path of destruction. It's coming from the south, deep beneath the ocean floor, but it's heading directly for Aethelburg. It's close. Very close. Kaelen felt a cold dread seep into his bones, chilling him more effectively than the unnatural mist. The clock tower. The marketplace. These weren't vague, symbolic dreamscapes. These were specific landmarks, places he walked every day. A memory, unwanted and sharp, pierced through his carefully constructed defenses. The sound of his mother's scream, the ground splitting beneath his feet, the monstrous shadow blotting out the sun. He pushed it down hard. Environmental anomalies, he muttered, trying to regain control. Unusual currents, tremors, they happen. It doesn't mean a giant monster is coming to redesign the cityscape. He looked at Luna, searching for a hint of trickery, of delusion. But her fear was raw, palpable. And the chill in the air intensified, pulling a heavy gray cloak over the docks. A massive freighter, usually handled with ease by the port's advanced magnetic cranes, suddenly lurched. A steel cable snapped with a sound like a rifle shot, whipping dangerously close to Kaelen's head. Workers scattered, shouting. The crane operator looked down, bewildered, pointing to his controls. Sensors went haywire. Never seen anything like it. Kaelen's eyes met Luna's. Her face was pale, but a flicker of grim vindication shone through her fear. It's Vorlag, Kaelen. Its presence disrupts everything. Technology, even the natural order. It's like a raw, uncontained force of nature, radiating chaos. He still wanted to argue, to deny. But the evidence, subtle at first, was becoming undeniable. The unnatural cold, the strange silence of the gulls, the deep tremors, the sudden technological malfunction. His practical, grounded world was wobbling on its axis. He couldn't shake the image of the split clock tower. He needed answers, and the only person Luna seemed to trust with these fantastical claims was an Elder Maeve. Who is this Maeve? He asked, the words forced past a dry throat. And why would she know anything about this nonsense? Luna's face softened slightly. Maeve, she's an old soul. My family knew her for generations. She tends a sanctuary, a place where the old ways are remembered. She understands the threads between our world and the spirit world, the true nature of the Titans, and the whispers of Mothra. She'll know what to do. A sanctuary. Spirit world. Kaelen felt a fresh wave of cynicism, but it was weaker now, battered by the unsettling realities. What was the alternative? Watch Aethelburg become another casualty, another city swallowed by chaos? He swallowed, tasting dust and fear. Fine. Take me to your oracle. But if this is just some cult, Luna, I swear. It's not, she said, cutting him off, her voice firm. It's truth, Kaelen. And it's our only hope. The journey to Maeve's sanctuary was a jarring transition. From the high-tech, reinforced steel and glass of Aethelburg's urban core, Luna led him through increasingly older districts, narrow cobbled alleys where digital billboards gave way to hand-painted signs. The air grew heavier, the mist thicker, tasting faintly of damp earth and something else, something ancient, like ozone after a storm mixed with the scent of forgotten spices. They walked for what felt like miles, past crumbling temples repurposed as community centers, past bustling markets where the aroma of street food mingled with the scent of incense. The deeper they went, the less the tremors seemed to register with the locals. It was as if this part of the city, rooted in older traditions, was more accustomed to the world's deeper rhythms, its subtle groans. Finally, Luna stopped before an unassuming wooden gate, half hidden by a sprawling wisteria vine. It looked like any other weathered entrance in the district, but Kaelen felt a distinct shift in the air, a drop in temperature, a stillness that was almost deafening. Beyond the gate, he could glimpse a tangle of greenery, ancient trees casting long, dancing shadows. Luna pushed the gate open, revealing a hidden courtyard, lush with moss-covered stones and a small, gurgling fountain. The buildings surrounding it were clearly ancient, built of dark, unvarnished wood and rough-hewn stone. The air here was cool and damp, imbued with the scent of wood smoke and unfamiliar herbs. It was a pocket of deep quiet in the heart of a bustling city. An old woman emerged from one of the buildings, her steps silent on the moss. Elder Maeve. She was stooped, her frame thin, but her presence filled the space. Her face was a roadmap of wrinkles, etched deep with time and wisdom. Her eyes, the color of warm amber, held a profound stillness. She wore simple robes of undyed linen, and her long, silver hair, braided with what looked like dried flowers and tiny polished stones, cascaded down her back. She didn't speak immediately, simply watched them approach, her gaze lingering on Kaelen with an unsettling intensity. It felt as if she was seeing straight through his cynical facade, peeling back the layers of his self-imposed detachment to the raw, wounded core beneath. Luna, child, Maeve's voice was a low, resonant hum, like wind chimes played by a slow, steady breeze. I felt your approach, and the storm you carry. Her eyes drifted to Kaelen, and the turbulence that accompanies it. Luna hurried forward, taking Maeve's hands. Maeve, it's Vorlag. The dreams, they're so vivid now. Kaelen still doesn't believe me, but he felt the tremors, saw the disruption at the docks. Maeve nodded slowly, her gaze never leaving Kaelen. Belief is a fragile thing, especially when the world has taught you otherwise. But truth often finds its own way of revealing itself, doesn't it, Kaelen Thorne? He shifted uncomfortably, feeling exposed. With all due respect, ma'am, I deal in facts, in what I can see and touch. Luna's dreams are dreams. And these anomalies could be anything. Maeve smiled, a gentle, knowing curve of her lips that didn't quite reach her eyes. The world is more than what your hands can grasp, young man. And dreams are often merely a veil, a thin gossamer between our waking minds and the deeper currents of existence. She gestured towards a low, intricately carved table laden with steaming cups. Come, sit. The tea is warm, and the knowledge I offer may perhaps cool your troubled spirit, if not fully convince your stubborn mind. As they settled on cushions around the table, Maeve poured a fragrant, earthy tea. The warmth of the cup was a small comfort. Luna, Maeve began, her voice soft but authoritative, you are blessed. You share the sight, the bond with Mothra. She is the weaver of dreams, the guardian of balance. Her whispers, her visions, they are not idle fancy. They are warnings, guidance for those pure of heart enough to hear them. She looked at Kaelen again. Mothra has chosen Luna as her conduit for a reason. And her message is clear, Vorlag awakens. A primal force, older than cities, older than recorded history, driven by an instinct to reshape the very land through cataclysm. It seeks to claim a nexus of geomantic energy, a place where the Earth's power is strong. Aethelburg, built upon such a convergence, is in its path. Kaelen scoffed despite himself. Geomantic energy? Cataclysm? This sounds like ancient myths, not a real threat. And what is a titan, Kaelen, if not a living myth? Maeve countered gently. You have seen their power. You have felt their indifference. Vorlag is not like Mothra, who seeks balance and harmony. Vorlag is pure, raw creation and destruction, a force that simply is. Its awakening is causing these tremors, these disruptions. It pulls at the very fabric of our reality, bending it to its will. Luna, her eyes fixed on Maeve, nodded slowly. I saw a kind of hunger, not for food, but for raw power, to tear down and build anew. Precisely, Maeve said, her gaze now distant, as if seeing beyond the walls of her sanctuary. It has been dormant for millennia, very deep beneath the Pacific floor. But she paused, her brow furrowing slightly. Something has stirred it. And now it rises. And when it reaches the surface, its presence will be like a living hurricane, its body a mountain range, its roar capable of silencing cities. Kaelen felt a cold, creeping certainty. The faint humming beneath his feet, the unnatural chill, the fractured freighter. It wasn't coincidence. It was a prelude. He thought of his family, the terror of that day, the sudden, overwhelming force of nature that had stolen them from him. He had sworn never to feel that helplessness again. But here it was, gnawing at him, forcing him to confront the incomprehensible. Maeve met his gaze, her eyes surprisingly sharp. The port disruptions, the silent gulls, the unusual currents, these are but the earliest tremors, Kaelen Thorne. Vorlag's shell, deep beneath the ocean, resonates with the Earth's core. And Luna's dreams are not mere whispers anymore. They are warnings, clear as the tide. Vorlag's true emergence is not days away or even hours. It is closer, much closer. We must prepare, for when that primordial beast breaks the surface, Aethelburg will be plunged into its darkest hour. The city slept, or at least tried to. Aethelburg had lived on the fringes of Titan paths for generations, lulling itself into a false sense of security with advanced seismic sensors and a hardened coastal defense grid. But the tremors that began just after midnight weren't the familiar, distant rumbles of a passing leviathan. These were sharper, closer, rattling the very bones of the concrete metropolis. Kaelen was already awake. He'd barely slept since Luna's frantic vision of a shattered moon and a screaming Earth. He'd spent the evening checking the older, forgotten escape routes from the docks, a habit born of ancient trauma, even as he internally scoffed at the need. Now a low, guttural growl, too deep for any animal, too organic for a machine, vibrated through the floorboards of his cramped apartment, silencing the usual creaks and groans of the old building. Then, the lights flickered, died, and plunged the city into near total darkness. Only the distant, eerie glow of the bioluminescent algae in the harbor offered a faint, unsettling illumination. A cacophony of alarms erupted, not just the deep bass of the city's Titan early warning system, but the frantic, panicked wails of smaller district sirens, followed by the distant shouts of people. The seismic activity intensified, shaking Kaelen's meager possessions from his shelves. A loud crack echoed from the adjacent building, then a groan of tortured metal. "Luna," he barked, grabbing his worn jacket and his emergency pack, a lean kit of essentials he'd kept ready for years. He knew her address in the older part of the city, not far from the docks, but far enough that the immediate impact might differ. His heart hammered, not from fear for himself, but an unfamiliar, icy dread for her. The thought was new, unsettling, and powerful. He burst out into the hallway, the building swaying violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. He practically flew down the stairs, his drifter's agility now a desperate scramble. Outside, chaos had fully blossomed. Buildings were listing, power lines snapped and sparked like angry serpents. In the distance, a deep, resonant roar tore through the night, a sound that wasn't just loud, but primal, resonating in his very bones, vibrating in his teeth. It wasn't like anything he'd ever heard, not even during the catastrophe that took his family. This was different. Older. Hungrier. He ran, weaving through debris, ignoring the screams, his focus singular. Luna. He had to reach Luna. As he neared her neighborhood, the destruction became more acute. The ground convulsed, sending cracks snaking across the asphalt like lightning. Then, from the direction of the sea, an impossible geyser of earth and rock erupted, silhouetted against the dark sky by the flashes of collapsing infrastructure. It was followed by a colossal shape, rising like a mountain range, shedding tons of earth and seawater. Vorlag. It was immense, far larger than anything Kaelen had imagined from Luna's frantic descriptions. Its hide was a chaotic tapestry of dark, volcanic rock and jagged, crystalline formations that shimmered with an unsettling internal light. It moved with a slow, grinding inevitability, its titanic limbs tearing through the outer defensive wall of Aethelburg as if it were spun sugar. The sound it made was less a roar and more a groan of the earth itself, protesting its own violation. The first wave of destruction hit Luna's street like a physical fist. The ground buckled, sending her apartment building lurching precariously. Kaelen saw it happen, saw the upper floors begin to peel away like dried paint. "Luna," he roared, a desperate, raw sound. He sprinted, ignoring the collapsing lampposts and cracking pavement. He found her, not inside, but stumbling out onto the street, clutching a small, embroidered pouch. Her eyes were wide, glazed with terror and the dizzying aftershocks of a new vision. "Kaelen!" Her voice was a terrified gasp, but she recognized him immediately. A moment later, a section of the building directly above them groaned and began to give way. Kaelen didn't hesitate. He threw himself at her, tackling her to the ground, shielding her with his body as a shower of concrete and glass rained down. The impact jarred him, but he held on, covering her head as they skidded across the broken pavement. A nearby car was crushed flat by a falling beam. "Get up! We have to move," he yelled, pulling her to her feet. His hand clamped around her wrist, a firm, undeniable grip. It's worse than I dreamed," she stammered, her gaze fixed on the gargantuan form of Vorlag, which was now slowly, inexorably, advancing into the city proper. Each step was a minor earthquake, each breath a gale force wind. The deep hum, the mountains that walk, it's here to reshape, to consume. Kaelen saw the patterns now. The seismic activity wasn't random, it was rhythmic, linked to the Titan's slow, deliberate advance. Buildings didn't just collapse, they fractured along specific stress lines, almost as if being pulled apart by an invisible force field emanating from the creature. Roads buckled, not in uniform waves, but in deep, ragged fissures that mimicked the jagged lines on Vorlag's hide. Luna's shattered moon vision was less about the sky and more about the fundamental breaking of the ground. "Forget the dreams for a minute, Luna, focus." Kaelen snapped, his voice rough but firm. "Which way is safe?" "The docks are gone. The main roads are carnage." He knew the city, but not in this broken, fluid state. Luna squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, then opened them, a spark of resolve cutting through her fear. Maeve. Maeve's sanctuary. It's built on a ley line, a place of stability. It's southwest, through the old market district. She pointed, her hand trembling. Southwest. Old market. Got it. Kaelen started pulling her along, navigating through alleys he knew, ducking under precarious overhangs, his mind racing. He wasn't thinking about the lost ships, the destroyed docks, or his own shattered life. He was thinking about getting Luna to safety. The practical drifter had found a purpose beyond mere survival. The air grew heavy with dust and the acrid smell of ozone and pulverized stone. Every few minutes, another roar from Vorlag shook the ground, followed by the terrifying sound of further collapse. He had to shield Luna repeatedly, his body a shield against the raining debris. He felt sharp pains, but they were distant, secondary. They finally reached the perimeter of the old market district, a labyrinth of narrow streets and ancient stone buildings that had surprisingly weathered the initial onslaught better than the newer structures. Ahead, a familiar, weathered doorway, half hidden by overgrown vines, seemed to beckon. Elder Maeve's sanctuary. Kaelen kicked the door open, practically dragging Luna inside. The sanctuary, though trembling, seemed remarkably intact. The air was thick with the scent of herbs and ancient incense, a stark contrast to the dust and fear outside. Maeve sat cross-legged on a mat in the center of the main chamber, her eyes closed, a faint, ethereal glow surrounding her. The usual flickering candlelight was gone, replaced by the soft phosphorescence of moss growing on the ancient stones. Her face was serene, almost detached, even as the walls around them groaned. "You came," Maeve said, her eyes opening, a deep, knowing gaze settling first on Luna, then on Kaelen. There was no surprise, only a quiet certainty. "And you have seen." Kaelen practically collapsed, pushing Luna gently behind him. "Seen?" "Maeve, the city is falling apart." "It's exactly as Luna said. Worse. This thing, Vorlag, it's not just moving through, it's breaking everything fundamentally." His voice was hoarse, tinged with a terror he hadn't allowed himself to fully acknowledge until now. "What do we do?" Luna, though shaken, stepped forward, her hand still clutched around her pouch. "Maeve, the dreams, they're overwhelming now. Flashes of ancient symbols, of the earth groaning, of Mothra's light piercing through shadows. But it's so fractured, so urgent." Maeve nodded slowly, her gaze thoughtful. "Mothra speaks through the veil of chaos, for that is often when her voice is most needed. Vorlag is indeed a primeval force, a titan of raw geological upheaval. It seeks to reclaim the land, to return it to a primordial state. Its very presence resonates with the Earth's core, drawing upon telluric currents to fuel its destructive will." Kaelen felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. Telluric currents? So it's not just brute force? It's using the planet against itself? Precisely. It is reshaping, not merely destroying. "The land will be reborn, but not for the likes of us," Maeve explained. "The dreams are not merely warnings of what will happen, Kaelen. They are often clues to what can be done. Mothra sends not just fear, but guidance." "Guidance?" Luna asked, her brow furrowed. But the visions were so fragmented. A deep hum, a shattered moon, the mountains walking. And then a flash of green light, and a faint pulse, like a heartbeat in the earth. Kaelen looked at Luna, a new respect in his eyes. Her observations, once dismissed as whimsy, were now the key to their survival. He saw her not as a quirky visionary, but as their last hope. "A faint pulse, like a heartbeat," Maeve echoed, a flicker of light in her ancient eyes. That, Luna, is the heart of the message. Vorlag is a creature of immense power, but even the most formidable titans possess a core, a source of their strength, a rhythm that can be disrupted. A weakness that must be understood, not just fought with conventional means. Kaelen felt a surge of adrenaline, not of panic, but of grim determination. "So, we need to find this heartbeat? Where do we even begin to look? It's a mountain-sized creature, Maeve. And it's tearing Aethelburg apart." Maeve smiled, a thin, knowing curve of her lips. "Mothra shows you the way, Kaelen. You have seen the destruction. You have felt its presence. Luna has received the fragments. Now you must weave them into a tapestry of understanding. The heartbeat will be found not in what Vorlag destroys, but in what it cherishes to destroy. What ancient power does it seek to harness for its own reshaping?" She turned to Luna, her gaze intense. "The green light, Luna. The ancient symbols. They are not random. They speak of a connection, a resonance. You must delve deeper into the dreams. Allow Mothra to guide you to the source of Vorlag's power. For only by understanding its purpose can we hope to disrupt its path." Kaelen looked from Maeve to Luna, the full weight of their task settling upon him. His city was collapsing around them, and their only hope lay in deciphering cryptic dreams and finding a heartbeat in a rampaging titan. He was no longer just a cynical drifter. He was a protector, standing between chaos and the only threads of hope left. "Tell me, Luna," he said, his voice firm, "what else did you see?" "Every detail. We don't have time to waste." Luna closed her eyes, clutching her pouch. The terror was still there, but now a burning resolve joined it. There was a symbol, Kaelen. A spiraling glyph. And a feeling, a deep hum from beneath the city, from the very foundations of Aethelburg, a hum that Vorlag was listening to. Her eyes snapped open, blazing with renewed conviction. "It's not just destroying. It's seeking something, Kaelen. Something that lies beneath us." The air in Aethelburg crackled with a different kind of static now, not just the hum of emergency generators, but the raw, buzzing anxiety that followed Vorlag's destructive passage. Rubble still choked major thoroughfares, emergency sirens wailed a ceaseless dirge, and the smell of ozone and damp earth clung to everything. The city was a wounded beast, licking its wounds, but the beast that had inflicted them still stalked the periphery. Kaelen stood on a makeshift rooftop lookout, a skull etched onto his face as he surveyed the devastation. The docks he'd once found solace in were now a mangled mess of twisted metal and splintered wood, his old life sinking beneath the waves alongside the shattered remnants of ships. His detachment, once a shield, now felt like a lead weight in his gut. He had seen this before. The chaos, the fear, the helpless rage. But this time, he wasn't alone, nor was he merely observing. Luna was downstairs with Elder Maeve, and a new, terrifying weight settled on Kaelen's shoulders, the weight of responsibility. He heard Maeve's staff tap against the floorboards below, a rhythmic counterpoint to the city's mournful symphony. He descended, his boots thudding softly on the makeshift stairs, finding Luna curled on a worn rug in Maeve's sanctuary, her eyes fluttering rapidly, a sheen of sweat on her brow. Maeve sat beside her, chanting softly, a hand resting gently on Luna's forehead. "She's diving deeper than before," Maeve murmured, her voice a gravelly whisper. "Mothra is not just sending warnings now. She's sending instructions." Kaelen knelt beside Luna, his gaze fixed on her troubled face. Her usual whimsical charm was gone, replaced by an intense, almost frantic concentration. He could feel the latent energy in the room, a subtle thrum that vibrated through the old wooden walls. The very air felt alive, charged with Mothra's distant, powerful presence. Suddenly, Luna gasped, her eyes snapping open. They were wide, unfocused, reflecting something Kaelen couldn't see. "It's not a shield," she whispered, her voice raspy, but a wound. "A place where its essence bleeds." She squeezed her eyes shut again, a frustrated moan escaping her lips. So much pressure, water and heat, deep inside, something ancient. It hates the light, Kaelen. It feeds on the dark and the chaos, but it hates the purity of connection. She shivered violently, then finally relaxed, collapsing against the rug, spent. Maeve stroked her hair, offering a calming hum. "What did you see, child?" Maeve asked, her voice rich with patience. Luna took several ragged breaths, then slowly sat up, her eyes clearing, though still holding a residual intensity. Vorlag isn't just a force of nature. It's a living wound in the world. Its destructive power comes from an imbalance. Mothra showed me, an inner core, like a black sun, deep within its chest. But it's not a heart. It's a vortex, drawing in the world's chaos, empowering itself. Kaelen leaned in, his practical mind already trying to dissect the cryptic message. A core? So, a vulnerable point. How do we get to it? How do we even find it if it's inside something that large? Luna pointed vaguely to her own chest. It's not always hidden. When it emerges, when it prepares for its biggest destruction, it glows. A deep, consuming darkness, but it radiates from that spot. And the dream showed water. Not just any water, but purified water. Like a ritual. And heat. Not fire, but the heat of the sun, focused. Maeve nodded slowly, her eyes distant. The gossamer stream, she murmured, almost to herself. The ancients spoke of it. The lifeblood of the earth, channeled through sacred sites. Water, purified by the land itself, imbued with the sun's essence through concentrated ritual. It's what allowed Mothra's followers to soothe the world's wounds, even those inflicted by nascent titans. Kaelen frowned, his skepticism warring with the undeniable truth of Luna's previous warnings. A ritual? Elder, we're talking about a creature that just flattened half the port. We need bombs, railguns, sonic cannons, not holy water and a magnifying glass. You speak of the tools of the modern world, Kaelen, Maeve said, her gaze steady, which have proven inadequate. Vorlag is ancient, a primal force. You must fight it with primal forces, but purified. Mothra does not send meaningless visions. The purity of connection Luna spoke of. It's not just about the water. It's about the collective will. The collective belief in a balanced world, channeled through the appropriate conduit. Luna added, her voice gaining strength, and the dream showed something else. The wound in Vorlag, it's sensitive to discordant energies. But Mothra also showed that when it's most vulnerable, it will be at a specific point in Aethelburg. A place of converging natural energies, where it intends its greatest act of devastation. That's where the purification needs to happen. Kaelen stood up, pacing the small sanctuary. This was more than just surviving. This was fighting back, actively. He felt a familiar knot of fear, the echo of his past trauma, but this time, it was laced with a ferocious resolve. He couldn't let Aethelburg become another ghost town. He couldn't let Luna become another casualty of the world's indifference. All right, he said, his voice firm, a newfound authority in it. If this gossamer stream is real, and if there are sites in the city, we need to know where they are. And we need to convince whoever's left in charge that this isn't some crackpot theory. We need to act. Maeve looked at him, a faint, almost imperceptible smile gracing her lips. You have changed, Kaelen Thorne. The cynicism has not vanished, but it is now tempered with purpose. This is good. The heart of Aethelburg lives in its people. Its defense will require more than just weapons. It will require its spirit. The city's provisional command center was a hive of frantic activity, engineers poring over holographic maps, military officers barking orders, and scientists staring grimly at seismic monitors that pulsed with increasing intensity. When Kaelen, Luna, and Maeve walked in, escorted by a surprisingly receptive Port Authority official Kaelen had known from his dock days, a hush fell over the room. The official, Captain Anya Sharma, had witnessed Vorlag's destructive power firsthand and had heard enough hushed whispers about Luna's precognition to give them an audience. Thorne, General Kaiju, a stern, grizzled man with eyes that had seen too many Titan emergencies, said, his voice tight. Captain Sharma says you have information. After the damage to Sector Gamma, I'm willing to listen to anything that isn't complete fantasy. He glanced pointedly at Luna, then at Maeve's ancient, serene face. Kaelen stepped forward, placing himself between Luna and the General's dismissive stare. It's not fantasy, General. It's the only lead we have. Luna's visions accurately predicted Vorlag's last attack. And this isn't just about predicting. It's about a weakness. He relayed Luna's dream, translating the cryptic language into practical terms, Maeve occasionally interjecting with ancient lore that, surprisingly, resonated with some of the more progressive scientists present. Luna, though still visibly drained, elaborated on the details, her intuitive leaps providing startling clarity. The core isn't just physical, Luna explained, her voice steady despite the array of skeptical faces. It's a spiritual anchor. It absorbs chaotic energy. To neutralize it, Mothra suggests a focused counterforce. A highly purified, energized water delivered with precision. She pointed to a specific intersection on the holographic map, a confluence of old underground waterways and a newly rediscovered ancient shrine. This is where it will make its final stand. This is where it will consolidate its power for the biggest wave of destruction. General Kaiju tapped a finger on the map. You're telling me we need to hit a spiritual core at a specific ancient site with holy water and concentrated sunlight? His voice was laced with disbelief, but his eyes held a flicker of desperation. Not holy water, Maeve corrected, her voice carrying an unexpected weight that silenced the room. The gossamer stream. It flows beneath the city, connecting ancient spiritual nodes. These nodes, when activated, can purify and amplify the natural energies of the world. We need to tap into that stream, charge it, and deliver it when Vorlag presents its vulnerable point. Kaelen, surprising himself with his own conviction, continued. We can adapt existing tech. Engineers, we need a high-pressure delivery system, something that can project a directed stream. Scientists, can we integrate a focused energy burst, perhaps from solar arrays or concentrated light sources, to charge this water as it's delivered? Think of it as a targeted, hyper-purified plasma, but drawn from the city's own spiritual wellsprings. The room buzzed with a mix of incredulity and dawning recognition. Several younger engineers and scientists, frustrated by the ineffectiveness of conventional weaponry, began to murmur possibilities. A hydrocannon, modified for specific energy signatures. One mumbled, if the water has a unique vibrational frequency. Another pondered. General Kaiju, after a long, assessing silence, finally slammed his fist on the table. All right, we've thrown everything else at it, and it just got angrier. Thorne, Lovegood, Maeve, you have my full cooperation. Mobilize the engineering core. Get me schematics for high-pressure delivery systems. Scientists research these spiritual nodes and the gossamer stream. We have less than 48 hours before Vorlag returns to finish the job. Kaelen felt a surge of adrenaline, mixed with a profound sense of apprehension. He was no longer just a cynical observer. He was a crucial part of the fight. Over the next day, Aethelburg transformed from a retreating victim into a galvanized fortress. Under Kaelen's surprisingly pragmatic leadership, the impossible began to take shape. He moved between dusty blueprints and frantic construction sites, translating Luna's ethereal guidance and Maeve's ancient wisdom into actionable engineering specifications. A vast, modified industrial pump, originally designed for deep-sea salvage, was repurposed. Its nozzles were being adapted to focus a powerful stream, lined with newly fabricated photonic emitters designed to infuse the water with directed solar energy. Simultaneously, teams of workers, guided by Maeve and ancient city schematics, began excavating beneath the specified intersection, revealing moss-covered stones and intricate, glowing runes, the very spiritual nodes Maeve had spoken of, which connected to the gossamer stream. Luna, though physically tired, became the operational heart of their efforts. Her connection to Mothra allowed her to feel Vorlag's slow, ponderous approach, guiding the placement of defensive barriers, the trajectory of the water cannons, and the activation sequence of the spiritual nodes. She pointed to a dilapidated clock tower near the designated site. That's it. Vorlag will aim to destroy that first. Its core will be most exposed then. Kaelen worked tirelessly, driven by a growing determination. He found himself inspiring others, pushing through fatigue and doubt with a conviction he hadn't known he possessed. He looked at the faces around him, engineers, soldiers, city workers, all united by a common, desperate goal. This was Aethelburg, battered but unbowed. This was the connection he had so long avoided, and yet, in this moment of crisis, it felt like the only thing worth fighting for. As dawn broke on the second day, a deep, resonant hum began to vibrate through the ground. The seismic monitors screamed into the red. On the horizon, a monstrous silhouette began to take shape against the bruised sky, larger and more menacing than any previous emergence. Vorlag was returning. Kaelen stood beside Luna at the command center, the air thick with tension. He looked at her, her face pale but determined. "Ready, Luna?" She met his gaze, a ghost of her old whimsical smile touching her lips. "As I'll ever be," Mothra says. "The greatest light often comes from the deepest shadow. We just have to be brave enough to wield it." Kaelen nodded, then turned to the assembled troops and engineers, his voice cutting through the rising rumble of the approaching Titan. "All right, Aethelburg. This is it. Every piece of tech, every ancient stone, every ounce of courage we have. We hit it with everything. And we save our home." He could feel the tremors intensifying, the ground trembling underfoot. The air grew heavy, charged with Vorlag's immense, destructive power. He looked out the reinforced windows at the looming Titan, then back at Luna, whose eyes were fixed on the distance, already seeing the battle unfold. The roar that followed was primal, ancient, and bone-shaking, announcing Vorlag's arrival to reclaim its intended devastation. But this time, Aethelburg was ready. This time, they had a plan. And Kaelen Thorne, the man who had only ever sought to avoid involvement, was now leading the charge, his heart beating a fierce rhythm of defiance against the world's chaos. The sky above Aethelburg was a canvas of bruised purples and angry grays, reflecting the turmoil beneath. Vorlag, a colossal, primeval force of nature, had breached the city's outer defensive perimeter, its monstrous form tearing through reinforced walls and twisting steel like papier-mâché. The ground trembled with each thud of its titanic feet, a rhythm of impending doom that resonated in every citizen's bones. Yet, amidst the chaos, a different rhythm had begun to beat, one of coordinated resolve, fueled by the whispers of an ancient moth and the stubborn will of a man who once only wanted to be forgotten. Kaelen Thorne stood on the command platform of the Aegis Tower, the city's central defensive hub. The holographic tactical map glowed before him, showing Vorlag's destructive path, the deployment of energy cannons, and the mobile defense units attempting to funnel the Titan towards the designated weak point. The geothermal vents beneath the old industrial district, where its concentrated earth-shaping energies became volatile and exposed. His previous cynicism, once a heavy cloak, had been shed, replaced by a clarity born of absolute purpose. His eyes, once guarded and distant, now scan the data streams with fierce intensity, seeking openings, coordinating defenses, protecting Luna. Luna, pale but resolute, was nearby, her head bowed, hands pressed against her temples. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps, her face etched with the strain of channeling Mothra's immense power. Elder Maeve sat beside her, a hand resting gently on Luna's shoulder, a silent anchor in the storm of psychic energy. Its consolidating power, Luna choked out, her voice thin, amplified by the tower's internal comms system. The visions, it's drawing energy from the Earth's core, like a great, hungry root. The vents, it's going there. It knows it can amplify its power there, but it will expose its core. Confirmed, Kaelen announced, his voice steady, cutting through the crackle of distant explosions. All mobile units, fall back and regroup at Sector Gamma. Focus fire on Vorlag's legs to slow its approach. Keep it on the path. A junior officer, sweat beading on his brow, looked up from his console. Sir, losses are mounting. Sector Beta is completely collapsed. We can't hold it much longer. Kaelen met his gaze, his jaw tight. We don't need to hold it. We need to guide it. Every second we buy, every distraction, brings us closer. Remember Mothra's message. When the earth groans, the heart is bare. We need to make it groan. He turned to Luna, a silent question in his eyes. She looked up, her own eyes wide, filled with a mixture of terror and determination. It's coming, Kaelen. I can see it, a shimmering crackle of energy at its chest, like a nascent star. That's it. That's the vulnerability. We need to concentrate everything there, Kaelen said, spinning back to the tactical map. Commanders, reroute all available power to the main Aegis cannon. Prepare for a full power blast. Target acquisition will be critical. Luna, you're our eyes. You tell us when. The battle escalated into a symphony of destruction and desperate hope. Vorlag, sensing the trap, unleashed torrents of energy, reshaping buildings into rubble and sending shockwaves through the city. The Aegis Tower shuddered, but its ancient foundations, reinforced with modern tech, held firm. Kaelen moved with an almost primal instinct, his commands precise and unhesitating. He wasn't just directing units, he was a conductor of courage, his voice a balm against despair. Hold the line, Alpha 7. Evacuate non-essential personnel from Sector Gamma now. Aegis Cannon, stand by for charge sequence. Luna cried out, a sharp, piercing sound that made everyone wince. It's trying to disrupt my connection. The noise, it's overwhelming. Elder Maeve tightened her grip on Luna's shoulder. Focus, child. Feel the hum of Mothra, not the roar of Vorlag. Let her light guide you through the darkness. Kaelen rushed to Luna, kneeling beside her. Luna, look at me. Breathe. You're stronger than this. Mothra chose you because you see the beauty, even in this. Find it. Find the pattern. He placed a hand on her arm, a steadying presence amidst the psychic storm. His touch, a connection he once fiercely avoided, was now his greatest strength. Luna squeezed her eyes shut, sweat beading on her forehead. The shimmer, it's fleeting, like heat haze over a desert road. But it's there, Kaelen, when it draws energy. A pulse. A pulse, Kaelen repeated, standing up, his mind racing. That's it. It has to vent excess energy. When it reaches the geothermal vents, it'll try to absorb maximum power, and that's when it'll be most exposed. He relayed the updated information to the Aegis cannon crew. We target the moment it tries to stabilize its energy absorption. It'll be a small window. Luna will give us the precise timing. The wait was agonizing. Vorlag reached the geothermal vents, its immense form dwarfing the industrial structures, steam hissing around its ankles. The ground began to vibrate with a deeper, more resonant hum as it tapped into the Earth's raw power. Buildings nearby buckled and collapsed as the Titan's very presence warped reality. It's starting. Luna shrieked, her body arching. The pulse. It's building. A bright, sickening green, right where its chest would be. Aegis cannon, full charge. Kaelen roared, pointing at the tactical map, his finger pinpointing the precise location. Target confirmed. Lock on. The main Aegis cannon, a massive construct of gleaming alloys and humming energy conduits, began to glow with an ominous blue light. The air around it crackled, static electricity prickling the skin of everyone in the tower. "It's getting brighter, Kaelen." "No! No!" Luna screamed, her voice hoarse, her eyes wide open, unseeing but perceiving everything. "Fire!" Kaelen's command was a primal roar, echoing the release of compressed energy. A searing beam of pure blue energy shot forth from the Aegis cannon, tearing through the bruised sky like a vengeful comet. It struck Vorlag with an impact that shook the entire city, a blinding flash of light that momentarily eclipsed the Titan itself. Vorlag roared, a sound of agony and fury, its massive body recoiling, throwing up plumes of steam and debris. The sickly green glow on its chest flared violently, then pulsed, then dimmed, flickering like a dying ember. It worked. "But it's not down," a technician yelled, fear still in his voice. "It's hurt, but not defeated," Kaelen countered, his gaze fixed on Vorlag. "It's regenerating. Its energy absorption is accelerating to compensate." Luna slumped, exhausted, but quickly pushed herself up, her eyes still scanning the ethereal battlefield. "The energy, it's like a wound that won't close. Mothra is showing me it needs a second blow. While it's trying to heal, its protective shell is weakest. But the window is closing. We don't have time to recharge the Aegis cannon," the officer cried. Kaelen knew. He also knew Aethelburg's advanced defenses had other tricks. Reroute power from all secondary defense grids to the mobile artillery units in Sector Delta. Load armor-piercing kinetic rounds. Forget precision, we need brute force, concentrated on that glowing spot. He turned to Luna, a desperate resolve in his eyes. "Can you hold the vision? Even for a moment? We need those rounds to hit true." Luna nodded, pushing herself to her feet, swaying. "I can. Mothra, she's wrapping me in light. I can feel her guiding my sight. But it won't last. The strain is immense. Then let's make it count." Kaelen barked, his voice filled with renewed urgency. "All units, concentrate fire on Vorlag's exposed core. Luna will guide you. Trust her. This is our last chance." The mobile artillery units, smaller but numerous, unleashed a barrage of kinetic projectiles. The ground-to-air missiles, usually reserved for aerial threats, were repurposed, their explosive payloads aimed at the wounded Titan. Each round struck with a resounding clang, chipping away at Vorlag's regeneration, delaying its recovery. But it wasn't enough. Vorlag was slowly but surely resealing its wound, its primal resilience overwhelming. "Kaelen, it's closing. The green is fading." Luna cried, tears streaming down her face from the immense psychic strain. Kaelen made a snap decision, one that went against every fiber of his being, every survival instinct that screamed at him to stay safe, to remain distant. He grabbed a comm unit from a stunned officer. "This is Kaelen Thorne, directing all remaining air support, all drones, all armed personnel within striking distance. Forget cover. Forget strategy. Dive at it. Create a diversion. Give Luna one more opening." He looked at Luna, his eyes burning with a fierce, unwavering determination. "Luna, you have to hit it again. You have to give us the trajectory for one more strike. Mothra needs to show us one last window." Luna looked at him, truly seeing him, seeing the man who had shed his armor of cynicism to become Aethelburg's protector. I'll try." She closed her eyes again, reaching deeper, her body trembling. As the scattered air support and daring ground units launched their suicidal diversions, drawing Vorlag's attention, Luna gasped. "There. The energy. It flickers deeper. Not the chest, but deeper within. Like a heartbeat, Kaelen. A pulse that only Mothra can truly see. Coordinates." Kaelen roared, his mind already formulating a plan that was as insane as it was brilliant. "Give me the coordinates, Luna." Luna, her voice barely a whisper, started rattling off a complex series of spatial vectors, her eyes still closed, envisioning the Titan's very core. Kaelen snatched a data slate, inputting the coordinates. "We have one last shot. The Orbital Defense Satellite Array. It's a precision strike weapon, designed for targets in deep space, but it has a terrestrial mode. It's high risk, high reward. If it misses, it could devastate part of the city. No, Elder Maeve intervened, her ancient eyes fixed on Kaelen. It must not miss. Luna's vision is pure. Trust her, Kaelen. Trust Mothra. Trust yourself. Kaelen nodded, his gaze unwavering. He knew the risk, but he also knew the alternative. Luna, can Mothra focus this strike? Can she guide it? Not just show us the target, but ensure the hit. Luna opened her eyes, a strange, ethereal glow behind them. She says, she will weave the light. If you provide the path, then give us the path, Luna. Weave it. Kaelen commanded, a tremor of emotion, of profound connection, in his voice. The orbital array, a shimmering constellation in the high atmosphere, began to hum. A single, needle-thin beam of pure white energy descended from the heavens, guided by a force unseen by human eyes, but felt by the heart. It passed through the chaos of the battlefield, past the last desperate defenses, and plunged directly into the heart of Vorlag's exposed wound. This time, there was no explosion, no violent recoil. Instead, Vorlag shuddered, a deep, earth-shattering tremor that resonated with the very fabric of the planet. The immense creature froze, its destructive energies coiling inwards, then dissolving. The sickly green light on its chest pulsed one last time, then vanished entirely. Vorlag's colossal form began to disintegrate, not into gore, but into fine dust and shimmering light, carried away on the wind, returning to the elemental forces from which it came. The ground stopped shaking. The roars ceased. An unnatural silence descended upon Aethelburg. Kaelen stood, breathless, watching the last vestiges of the Titan vanish. A single tear traced a path down Luna's soot-streaked cheek, a tear of relief, of exhaustion, and perhaps of awe. The city was wounded, scarred, but it stood. A cheer, tentative at first, then growing into a deafening roar, erupted from the calms, from the streets below, from every corner of Aethelburg. Kaelen turned to Luna, a smile, raw and genuine, breaking through his grime-streaked face. You did it, Luna. You saved us all. He reached out, not hesitating, and pulled her into a tight, protective embrace. His touch was no longer something he feared, but something he offered freely, a shield, a connection. He had started as a man running from connections, haunted by loss. Now he stood as a protector, a leader, a man who had faced the chaos and found his purpose in defending the dreamers and the vulnerable. He looked out at the sunrise, painting the damaged city in hues of red and gold, a symbol of rebirth. But as the cheers subsided and the cleanup began, Elder Maeve's voice, quiet but resonant, cut through the emerging peace. Vorlag is gone, but the threads of fate are long, Kaelen Thorne. This city has found its champion, but the world holds many more ancient secrets, many more slumbering giants. Mothra's dreams are not always of destruction, but of balance. And balance, like the gossamer wings of a moth, is a fragile thing. Her gaze turns now, not just to what was, but to what is yet to come. A new whisper on the wind, a different kind of hum beneath the earth. Kaelen, still holding Luna, looked at Maeve, then back at the horizon, a faint unease stirring beneath his newfound purpose. He had just faced a primal force of chaos and won, but the world, he realized, was far larger, far more mysterious than he had ever dared to imagine. And his journey, it seemed, had only just begun.